pattern. Um, so let's consider first a problem scenario which we are going to solve via implementing the adapter design pattern. So this problem scenario says that I have to develop a client application which needs to fetch the employee details from a target application, but the client application should not call the target application interface directly because they are incompatible. And the client application interface should not be tightly coupled with the target application interface. So in a way, what I want to say is that my target application interface cannot be called from my client application, maybe because the types of arguments it accepts in its method is not available with my client application, and I don't want to code the logic to in my client application to make the target application interface compatible to my client application, because my target application to fetch the employee details might change with time. So I don't want to keep that logic in my client application. So now let's see what are the points in the textual definition of adapter design pattern. So it says that it converts the interface of a class into another interface the client application accepts, which means the it is going to in a way convert the target application interface into the one which my client application will be able to call, and it lets the classes communicate and work together, which otherwise would not have due to incompatible interface. So how it does, we are going to see via some code. Let's see a few of the key interfaces and classes of this. So we'll have a client interface, a client application class. My client application class only knows about the client interface. I have a target application or adaptee interface which my client application cannot call directly because of some compatibility issues. And then I will have a adapter class which will make the communication possible between my client application and the target application. So let's see via code what it is all about. So let me just open this employee info interface. Let's consider it is a target application interface which has a method get employee name. It accepts the employee ID as an argument and returns back the employee name. If I see its implementation, it's going to get the employee ID. It's going to fetch the employee name based on the employee ID from this map. This is the employee ID and the name, and it's going to return back me the employee name. As simple as that. Now coming on to my client application. So my client application does not hold any info about employee ID. What it knows about employee ID prefix and suffix. So dev and QA, these are my employee ID prefix, and suffix can be 100, 200, 300, or 101, 201, or 301. So it knows about employee ID prefix and employee ID suffix. It doesn't know how to convert this prefix and suffix into employee ID via some logic. So from my client application, I cannot call this employee info directly because I don't know about my client application doesn't know about employee ID. It knows about employee ID prefix and suffix. So one way is that I code the logic here to convert this prefix and suffix into employee ID and then call employee info, but that won't be right because I don't want to tightly couple my target application with my client application. I want to keep them separate. So if we see here the client interface, as I said, it's going to it has a method fetch employee name, and based on prefix and suffix it gives me a employee name. My client application knows about its client interface and it's going to call that only. So it's going to go here and call this. In this client interface implementation, which accepts this employee ID prefix and suffix, now here also I won't code the logic to convert this prefix and suffix into the employee ID and call call a method from employee info, because as I said, I don't want a tight coupling because my employee info, which is the target application, might change with time. So I don't want to keep on changing the code here in my client application interface or its implementation. Rather, I'm going to introduce an adapter, and on this adapter I'm going to call a method fetch employee name via adapter, and I'm going to pass this employee ID prefix and suffix to it and let adapter do the job. So let's see this adapter. So this adapter holds the information about my target application, its interface and its interface implementation, and based on the employee ID prefix and suffix, first it's going to have the logic to convert it into employee ID, and then it's going to call the target application interface implementer, and it's going to pass this employee ID to it, and then it will get back the employee name. Same will be returned to the client app. So if I execute this, I'm going to get the employee name from the target application implementation. I passed this dev100 and I got back Robert Jackson, the employee name. So if you say this, I'm passing the prefix as dev and suffix as 100, and adapter is converting it into employee ID, and then it is calling the target application. It has one more advantage. If we see that this target application, if it changes its behavior and it says, okay, now my employee IDs are saved like this, at the rate instead of underscore, right? So now if you see from my client application, here I have to make no code change. It's going to call its own client interface implementation, pass on this prefix suffix. In my client uh, implementation also, I don't have to make any code change. It will simply going to call this adapter and going to pass the same info here. The only code change that I have to make is in the adapter to again make the client application and the target application compatible with each other and communicate and fetch the results. So here I have to just make the change of in the logic to derive the employee ID, and rest will remain same. So if I run this again, I'll get the same result. So if you see that if I say that my client application, my client interface implementation is a part of one application, a client application, then though it is incompatible with the target application, which is employee info and its implementation, then also they are able to talk to each other via adapter. So that was the theme of adapter design pattern. Coming back to the definition again, if we revisit that definition, we'll be able to correlate it in a better way. So if you see, it converted the um, target application interface into uh, interface which was understandable by my client application. Though initially my uh, target interface and client interface were incompatible. I didn't have my client application didn't have all the info or the way to invoke the target application interface implementation, but still via adapter I was able to do that. And obviously it lets classes communicate and work together, which otherwise was not possible due to incompatibility between the client interface and the target interface. So thanks a lot, friends. Hope you understood the concept of adapter design pattern via this very basic and simple example. Yeah, thanks a lot.